So, Tom, any advice for people stuck in the rat race? What do you do?
Yeah, well, first thing I would suggest is, even if it's a side hustle, start a business. Start a business in your home. Learn how to be a business owner, because there's so much easier to be an investor when you're a business owner.
Hello. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. This guy here, my friend Donald Trump, 2 books together. We're supposed to do 3, but he called me up and says, "Hey, Robert, I can't do the 3rd book because I'm running for president." I said, "Good luck." Now, Trump is out there doing things that I think are interesting, like bombing Venezuela, all this stuff. It's causing ripples throughout the world. And so our guest today is Michael Mauceli. For full disclosure, I have been investing with Michael for about 30-something years now. And he's an oil man. More than that is, I went to Vietnam twice as a Marine. Don't recommend it. And another guest is Tom Wheelwright, because everything I do is taxes. Everything we do has to do with taxes. So Tom's going to be on board right now because taxes are communist. As Karl Marx said, the graduate income tax is essential for the spread of communism. And America was founded as a tax-free nation, 1773, Boston Tea Party. So today we have a lot of things going on in the world. And my friend Donald is bombing Venezuela. I don't like war, but we have a war going on in Ukraine, the holy wars in the Middle East, and now Venezuela. So welcome to the program, Michael and Tom.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Thanks for having us, Robert.
Give us a little bit of your background on your REI Energy. You drill for oil in the United States, right?
Yeah, in fact, I started in the oil and gas business, I guess, in 1978. Started working with a company called Tennessee Gas in the summers. I moved to Texas in 1980. Worked for some small independents. I've drilled domestically, internationally, onshore, offshore, pretty much all facets of the business. Had a 2 million acre concession in Argentina. So I'm familiar with drilling in South America, not necessarily Venezuela, but I have been involved in that part of the business before.
Okay. And Tom, give us your background. Tom is my tax advisor. He's author of Tax-Free Wealth. And everything we do involves taxes, in spite of the fact America was founded as a tax-free nation in 1773. And Marx was very pro-taxes. So Tom, give us a little bit of background.
That's true. So I've been in the tax business for 45 years. I spent 7 years with Ernst & Young, including 3 years in the National Tax Office in D.C. I spent 4 years with a Fortune 500 company as their in-house tax advisor. And the last 30 some odd years, I've been building, buying, selling CPA firms and developing now a franchise of CPA firms around the U.S. And it's very exciting times in the tax world. Good news is taxes pretty much stay the same. They're a series of incentives for investors and business owners. The incentives change with the administrations, but they're still incentives.
I mean, everybody's hoping AI is going to take care of taxes, but I don't think that's going to come for a while anyway.
Well, I have some clients who think that AI has all the answers and they keep getting wrong answers. So maybe not such a good idea.
Anyway, so for full disclosure, I invest with Michael Mauceli. Every month I get a check. Well, I've been invested with Michael for a long time, an oil guy. Believe it or not, my background is oil. I went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kingsport, New York, and I specialize in oil. I drove tankers for Standard Oil of California. I was up in Valdez, Alaska, when that other idiot from another maritime school, New York Maritime, struck the reef up there and polluted one of the most beautiful environments in the world. Everybody gets anti-oil. But it was Fort Schuyler, New York, not Kings Point, that hit that reef. They can't navigate. That's our problem. But anyway, oil is essential. And Tom's going to tell the difference between investing in real estate sometimes versus oil because they have different tax advantages. So, Michael, when Trump, my buddy here, bombed Venezuela, was that because he loves peace and all that? What is he up to?
Well, President Trump, he's always got an ulterior motive, right? He's a businessman. So if he can have a chance, and this was a legal chance, obviously, he had the right to go in and nab the dictator. And, he gave him every chance to get out. But if he can grab a hold of the world's largest oil reserves and have control of it, I think that had to be an ulterior motive in the back of his mind.
Isn't he pissed at China for buying Venezuelan oil?
Yeah, there were some, pretty bad actors in there from what I read. China, of course, was I think the day that he bombed, the day that he snatched Maduro, they were having a meeting with the Chinese and the delegation. And then, of course, Iran had a big proxy there. They were obviously, pumping drugs into, trying to, dismantle America. I mean, I think all the bad actors that want to see America fail, they were using Venezuela to kind of as a staging point.
Yeah, but not only that, on the macro world, in 1974, a guy named Kissinger went to Saudi Arabia because we came off the gold standard in 71. Mm-hmm. So we needed to back up the dollar. So in 74, the dollar became the petrodollar. So every barrel of oil that was sold throughout the world wasn't backed by gold, backed by oil. And just, I think this year, Saudi Arabia did not renew that license. So Saudi Arabia is not in good graces with Trump. And so Maduro is out there pumping oil, selling it to China. And so they're bringing drugs into America. So Trump makes sure the cameras are rolling as he bombs these poor suckers driving drug boats. And, killing all those drug guys is causing a big problem in America.
Yeah.
Because Tom and Michael know my doctor, Dr. Gopalan. He says the fentanyl trade from China is it provided a lot of heart transplant patients. But anyway, let's get back to oil. Tom, what are the advantages that I have for investing in oil?
Well, they're huge tax incentives. I mean, in fact, we've had tax incentives for oil since the 1970s. And the biggest one, of course, is every dollar you invest with Mike, you're going to get about an 80% to 90% deduction in the very first year with a combination of intangible drilling cost deduction, which is everything but the equipment. Plus now we have bonus depreciation. So now you get two deductions right off the bat. And on top of that, the income, that cash flow you're getting in, only 85% of it is taxable. So there's a 15% off the top write-off. So as opposed to, let's say you get a dividend from Standard Oil, right? That's subject to tax at 100% of it is subject to tax. Whereas your oil dividend, your oil cash flow from one of Mike's wells is only 85% of it is taxed. So huge tax benefits going in and coming out. It's one of the big differences between actually oil and real estate is that anybody can get into oil and they can get that deduction. They don't have to have any participation whatsoever other than investment.
Yeah. And for most people, when they invest in oil, they're investing in an oil company like Standard Oil.
Right.
Do they get the same benefits if I invested in a 401k or RRSP in Standard Oil?
No, not at all. In fact, when that income eventually comes out, you're going to be taxed at ordinary income rates with no tax benefit whatsoever.
Yeah. And I'm going to say something really quickly. We're not an investment company. We're not advisors. You should always check with your accountant and your attorney before doing anything, all this. And there's a big difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion.
Correct.
What's the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion?
10 to 20 years in prison. So tax avoidance is legal, it's expected, and it's actually encouraged. So this is, people don't understand this. It's actually encouraged. We call them incentives, right? So you're incentivized to put money into oil that you might otherwise put somewhere else, because oil is a little riskier than maybe some other investments. And so because in order to help you offset that risk, the government gives you this big deduction, which can be worth as much as 40 cents on the dollar of investment. So like you're putting in 60%, the government's putting in 40% of the investment, and then you're only taxed on 85% of the income. I mean, from a tax standpoint, oil and gas is the sweetest deal.
Yeah. So again, you should check with your investment advisor. And if you have a 401k, we'll pray for you tonight, because you can't use what Michael puts up there. So Michael, why else do you think, what is happening with Venezuela? I mean, not only drugs, which is good, but what do you think is going to happen with, we take Venezuela as a 51st state?
Well, I mean, most of our refineries, I guess, on the Gulf Coast were originally, built to handle Venezuelan crude. I mean, Venezuelan crude is a very heavy crude. Crude is usually based like sweet crude is called 42 gravity crude, and which is a light crude. In Venezuela's crude is anywhere from 8 to 12 gravity. So they would bring that that oil into the Gulf Coast, into those refineries. And of course, they would mix it with our crude here, which would bring the gravity up and make it more valuable to make gasoline and other products. So I think one of the things that, of course, when the first dictator took over, they nationalized the oil business and kicked a lot of the companies out. And according to Trump and them, I mean, they owe the U.S. billions and billions of dollars, and so they're going to try to reclaim that oil, and of course get that money back. So I think in the long run, that's what the big picture is to try to stabilize our continent here in the South America, and then also keep China and Russia and those countries that are not friendly to America out. So I think in the long picture, that's kind of what the administration is trying to do.
Yeah. If you raise the price of oil to China, and China's in serious financial condition right now, you raise the prices, that makes it harder for them, the Chinese, to sell products to America. So Trump's doing this for many reasons. Final question before I go for the break. Tom, if I have a 401k, can I invest with Mike Mauceli in oil?
That's a question for Mike, whether he'd take your investment. But the better question is, should you? And my answer is absolutely not. You lose all the tax benefits if you invest with Mike through your 401k.
And I agree with that. I mean, obviously, we try to discourage that because, like Tom said, there are no benefits, of going through your 401k.
And so have been once or twice with Michael, we hit dry wells.
Yeah.
And that's, we'll get a tax break for that, right, Tom?
You do. Of course, you get a full write-off for that.
So anyway, that's the problem with going to school and getting a job and getting a 401k. You have to invest in oil that's not the best for your benefit. When we come back, we're talking more about oil and Trump going to annex Greenland, the Gulf of America, so now the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, and he's going to annex Canada because Canada has lots of oil. I mean, Trump is my good friend, and his sons, Don Jr. and Eric, great young men. So when we come back, we're talking more about oil, but more the tax advantages and why going to school and having a 401k might not be the smartest thing for your taxes. We'll be right back.
Let me speak directly to you for a moment, because if you have been paying attention, you know this economy is not healthy. Debt is soaring, the dollar is losing strength, and the AI stock bubble is inflating so fast that even Wall Street is warning investors to slow down. While that happened, gold and silver broke all-time records. Gold over 4,300, silver doubling past 60. Markets do not move like that unless something deeper is shifting under the surface. That is why major banks like Morgan Stanley now recommend putting up to 20% of a portfolio in the precious metals. They see the same risk I do. The question is not whether the system will shake, it's whether your retirement can survive. My audience has been treated well by Priority Gold. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and Forbes ranks them as their top gold IRA partner. In a fragile economy, trust matters. Their gold and silver info guide walks you through 3 simple steps to add gold and silver to your IRA or 401k tax and penalty free. And the free, no pressure portfolio review will show you exactly where you stand heading into 2026. No guessing, just clarity. Call 866-703-9895 for your free guide and review. That's 866-703-9895. Or take out your phone, open a text message, type guide, and send it to 24999. Again, guide to 24999. Prepare now. Waiting has never protected anyone.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki. Our guest today, Michael Mauceli. He's REI Energy. For full disclosure, I've been investing with Michael for about 25 years in oil. And Tom Wheelwright, he's the author of Tax-Free Wealth. He's my accountant. And the reason I like inviting with Michael is I make a lot of money and pay very little in taxes. Now, you can't do that with a 401k, and neither should you. So anyway, it's an interesting time in oil. And again, I went to school for oil. I drove tankers for Standard Oil of California. So I like the oil business. So, Michael, what else is going on with, you think, this bombing of Venezuela? We're going to take Venezuela. How's it affecting the oil business in America?
Well, I don't think it's had much effect so far on prices. Obviously, it's going to take quite a while to get Venezuela back to producing the amount of production they did 10 or 20 years ago. As far as that, now, Venezuela was one of the founding members of OPEC, so they are an OPEC, country. So I'm sure that once that production starts flowing again, there will be restrictions on how much oil and gas each of these members can produce. So I don't really see it having that big of effect, on the prices of oil. We of course here in the United States, we drill shale wells, and shale wells are probably the most expensive oil to export. Our crude, you have to have $50 to $60 a barrel. So if crude was to drop, say, in the 40s for a while due to some of these reasons that by bringing more crude onto the market, you would definitely see drilling slow down here in the United States as far as on that. So it's kind of a give and take type situation. We have a lot of oil reserves here in the United States. Of course, we don't have 300 billion barrels of reserves in the ground, but our oil is more expensive to drill and it is more expensive to get out. So I don't really see it have that much effect on prices going forward.
Okay. Any comments on that, Tom?
Yeah, this is fascinating to me because it seems to me like it gives the U.S. an opportunity to control the production a little bit and actually have a voice in OPEC, which we have not had much of a voice in OPEC outside of Saudi Arabia. And of course, the price of oil is a big part of the investment in oil, right? Because you can't control the price of oil. A little easier to control, say, rents on a place you're renting. It's much harder to control the price of oil. So that is one of the challenges with oil, and which is why the government gives us such big tax incentives for oil. Now, here's another interesting thing. You get incentives for investing in domestic oil, but you don't get tax incentives for investing in foreign oil. So, the average investor in the U.S. is not going to be investing in Venezuela. That's going to be the big guys like Chevron, et cetera, Standard Oil, et cetera, that invest in Venezuela. They're the ones with the drilling platforms down there. The people who invest here are going to be there are a lot of smaller investors, really doctors, lawyers, business owners, employees. Here's one of the great things about oil is that you can be an employee and invest in oil and get the deduction immediately, whereas it's very hard to do that in real estate. So this is a huge advantage that oil has over real estate, is that it's not a passive investment, so you don't have to have passive income to offset. You can have ordinary income and offset even your wage income up to a limit. But for most investors, it's a plenty high limit that it's not going to affect them. So I think that's a huge advantage of domestic drilling in the United States.
So I asked this question. Back behind me is a cash flow board game. In the middle is a rat race, and the outside is a fast track. The fast track is for accredited investors.
Right.
You have to be an accredited investor to invest with Michael Mauceli. So you have to be on the fast track. So Tom, what's the definition of an accredited investor?
An accredited investor, you have to make $200,000 a year, or a combined household of $300,000, or you have to have $1 million of net worth outside of your home. Okay, your home doesn't count in that. So the idea of accredited is that you can afford to lose the money. It's actually not are you qualified to invest? Is really, can you afford to lose money? And that's what makes for an accredited investor in the United States.
So if you're in the rat race like this, and you're making less than 200,000, I mean, you're out.
Right. You're out. Now, there are a few public offerings in oil. It's I know, Mike, you don't do that, but I know there are a couple. But it's hard to find. It's hard to find investing when you're in the rat race instead of outside the rat race.
So, Michael, another thing is with REI Energy, and for full disclosure, I invest with you. We've made a lot of money together. I don't pay taxes on it, which is nice. But what's the minimum investment for the accredited, the fast track investor? How do they get involved with REI?
Our minimum investment is $25,000, so they can come in for that amount. It is a one-time investment where we're not going to come back to the investor and say, hey, we went over budget, please send us more money. So it's pretty easy to get involved with us as far as on our projects. We usually do 2 projects a year. Our focus is in North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Southeast Texas. They're about 60% natural gas, 40% oil now, the areas that we look at. Of course, the Bakken is about, it runs about 80% oil, 20% natural gas. So we tried to start adding more natural gas into our program simply because of the AI technology that's come out, data centers, and also, exporting of liquefied natural gas. So we kind of try to have a mix there.
So 25,000. Any other comments on that, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that most of your investors, though, your typical is going to be $100,000 or more, right, Mike?
Right. Yeah, we have investors anywhere from 25. Some invest $1 million. I mean, it's just the individual and how much they're looking to shelter and how much they want to, put into our programs.
So once again, the rich get richer and the poor and middle class got to buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. So it's not fair necessarily, but it's also not fair to be poor. And that's why all these people who go to school for job security, it's really tough to invest in on the fast track up here. You get stuck in the rat race. So Tom, any advice for people stuck in the rat race? What do you do?
Yeah, well, first thing I would suggest is, even if it's a side hustle, start a business. Start a business in your home. Learn how to be a business owner, because there's so much easier to be an investor when you're a business owner than if you're not a business owner. That's one thing. Business is the best tax shelter there is. It's literally better than any other tax shelter in the world is your own business. And then second of all, learn about other opportunities for investing, especially if you have a high income from your wages, or you can get involved in real estate or something else. Because, you can look at oil and gas, you can look at real estate, you can look at some of these fast track investments that have huge tax benefits as opposed to being stuck with your meager little 401k deduction.
So, Michael, any words of caution for people looking to invest with guys like you?
There's always risk. There's risk in every type of investment. So, if you can't afford to lose the amount you invest, then I would say, you need to look at more of a conservative type investment.
So one of the things I'm looking at right now I was talking to Mike Mauceli and Tom about this, with AI coming on board, that sucks up a lot of energy.
Yep.
Right.
It does.
Michael, I guys looking at that because right now I'm looking at an investment for energy outside of oil. Or Tom, any comments on that?
Well, there's obviously different forms of energy. I think that, what eventually impact more of the prices. I mean, we all know right now, wind and solar, they're investments. They're not, they don't account for a large amount of the energy that's produced here in the United States just simply because of the cost. I think going forward in the future, you're going to see a lot more small nuclear reactors. You're going to see more nuclear energy that, provided that we continue on with the administration we have, and we don't go back to the what the last administration was trying to do. But I think in the future you'll see more, electricity being produced through nuclear, just simply because it's a cleaner electricity. And of course, our military's been running the battleships off of it for 20 or 30 years. So I think that technology will come on shore eventually.
Well, on top of that, Mike, it seems like we've got a lot of opportunity for natural gas.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that your oil fields in Texas are 60% natural gas, where it seems to me like until we get the small nuclear plants, which is still quite a ways away, probably, I'm guessing probably 10 years away before we get those small nuclear plants easily. During that time, aren't we going to see more natural gas production and producing a lot of that energy for those big AI facilities? Let's call them the data centers. Aren't we going to see that coming through natural gas?
Yeah, certainly. In fact, we have, probably more natural gas reserves here in the United States than anywhere in the world. And, our biggest problem that we have in this country is just getting the gas to market. If you look at some areas out in West Texas, out in the Permian Basin, I mean, they actually have to pay to get rid of their gas. They don't have the pipelines that can move the gas to the Gulf Coast or where it needs to go. So a lot of times, it'll cost them $2 or $3 a barrel. I mean, $2 or $3 an MCF just to get rid of the natural gas.
So let's say, how do I say this? If I make $100,000 with Michael, Tom, gross, how much in tax do I pay?
Well, you're going to pay tax on only 85% of that. So you'll pay tax on $85,000. But the reality is you can keep investing with Michael and never pay tax. So there's no reason, somebody who's an active investor like you are, Robert, somebody who's constantly reinvesting, there's no reason to be paying tax, because the money you put in, you get the tax benefit to offset the income you're taking out. So it's just, this is why the rich keep getting richer, because the rich keep investing. They keep getting the tax benefits and then they get the cash flow, but it's non-taxable cash flow because of all the tax benefits they're getting from investing.
Yeah. And one of the things I loved about Michael Mauceli, but 25, 30 years, I gave you money 30 years ago. I'm still being paid. I still receive income. And I pay no tax on it because of a thing called depletion allowance, right, Tom?
That's right. So you got that 15% depletion allowance, plus you've got all the new investing that you're doing is offsetting all the other income.
Yeah. So again, I'm not recommending, we're not investment advisors. You've got to check with your own accountants, your own attorneys, what's best for you. But Michael Mauceli is the reason we created the cash flow board game is the reason you want to get out of the rat race is so you get on to the fast track and become what Tom classifies as an accredited investor.
That's right.
If you're accredited, you can't invest with REI, and you'll pay more and more taxes. So with that said, that's why we do what we do here at Rich Dad. There's more ways you can get rich. Real estate has its own different investment tax breaks. We're going to talk about that. And then the big one we'll be talking about is gold and silver, because that's a huge tax loss if you're successful in that one. I made that mistake. So anyway, we learn by making mistakes, and I've made so much money in gold and silver, but the tax losses, the tax consequences are huge. So that's why Tom, his book is Tax-Free Wealth, he's a Rich Dad Advisor, and Michael are on my team of advisors. That's how the rich get richer, is because we have advisors, not financial planners. So with that said, thank you, gentlemen. And we come back, we'll be ready for the final words from Rich Dad. So,
Thank you,
Michael,
Robert.
final words on oil, really quickly. Why do you like oil?
Well, I think oil is, of course, I'm in the business, but it's one of the best investments out there, I feel, especially when we're drilling these, new horizontal wells. I mean, it's not like the old days when I first started in the business that you had to go out and drill, 4 or 5 dry holes just to find a well, find oil and gas. I mean, today we're drilling into a rock that has oil and gas in it. Now, that doesn't mean that every well we drill is going to be commercial, but the bottom line is if you're in the right areas and you're in the best areas, you're going to make, pretty decent money off of them. And you get a lot of money back quickly on the horizontal wells because you're opening up sometimes 1,200 acres worth of rock under the ground. So you can imagine you get pretty high flow rate. So a lot of times you'll get a lot of your investment back in the first couple of years.
Well, the thing I love about it is money I gave Michael 25, 30 years ago. I'm still being paid on it. Final words on that, Tom.
Well, the government's always going to incentivize energy. And the reason is because we need energy to run the economy. And with AI coming on, we're going to need actually more and more energy, fewer and fewer people. But we need more and more energy to run those data centers. And that energy right now is all going to come from fossil fuels because there just isn't enough alternative energy, and nuclear is not coming online and won't come online fast enough. So I think that oil and gas has a bright future, particularly over the next 5 to 10 years. And from a tax standpoint, which is what I care most about, it is the easiest tax benefit there is out there.
And with AI coming on, more demand for more energy.
Correct.
So come back. Final word from Rich Dad. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Robert.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki. I want to thank Mike and Tom and speaking on oil. In the coming weeks, we talk about different investments like real estate. There's different advantages in all this. And gold and silver are different advantages. I like oil because, like I said, I've given Mike Mauceli money about 25 years ago, and every month a check comes in. And then Tom makes sure I don't pay much tax on it. So again, we're not an investment show company. We don't make recommendations. We make no recommendations. So please check it out with your advisor. And for your information is I'll be speaking on real estate with the Real Estate Guys Investment Cruise. So it's a Real Estate Guys cruise. Check it out on your website. For those of you who love real estate, we go on a cruise and we cruise the Caribbean. You learn so much about real estate. And they have so many great speakers. I'll also be in Charlotte, North Carolina on February 3rd for Aspire, the Aspire Tour on financial and personal growth for those interested in financial education. I'll see you at the Aspire Conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, February 3rd. If you don't want to learn about taxes and all that, just go to college and save money. Be really stupid about it. Another one is I'll be in Vancouver at the VRIC. It's this one here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I'll be speaking on mining because I own gold mines and silver mines, not just gold and silver. So it's a very interesting time in the world. The United States is the biggest debtor nation in world history, and the real enemy is the central bank called the Fed. And also our school systems teach us nothing about money. And one more thing, there's a book by Lawrence Lepard called The Big Print. Lawrence has some very interesting things in there about the Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank, which is Marxist central bank. The people that teach our graduate students at Harvard and Yale is the Fed. Look for a different financial education. So again, thank you to Tom and Mike. And I wish you all the best investing. You may make a lot of money and pay very little in taxes. Thank you.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.